Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the webinar, Starting a Software Company with Little Money and No Technical Skills, with our presenter, Ben Weiss. My name is Cassie Petoskey, and I'm the Assistant Director for Career Advancement for your Northwestern Alumni Association. We'll begin shortly, and we're so excited that Ben could join us for this great topic. But first, a few housekeeping items I'd like to share with you. On the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see that there are a few different tabs. Please send in your questions for Ben through the Q&A tab on the right-hand side of your screen. We're saving plenty of time at the end of the presentation to answer these questions, so please send them in now and throughout the webinar. Should you experience any technical issues during the webinar, you can email the Big Marker support team for further assistance at support@bigmarker.com, and I'll send that out in the chat box so you all have that email address as well. Lastly, a link to access the recording of the webinar will be sent to all registrants later today. And now let's move on to why we're all here. Ben Weiss is a very recent Northwestern alum, class of 2017 in fact, and the founder of ZCRUIT, a platform to help college football teams improve recruiting efficiency through predictive analytics. ZCRUIT was named one of the 10 Illinois student startups set to make moves in 2017 by Chicago Inno, and was recognized as one of the 5 most outstanding student startups at the 2017 Entrepreneurship U Awards. Ben is a 2017 Future Founders Fellow and has plans to pursue ZCRUIT full-time now that he has graduated from Northwestern with degrees in economics and learning and organizational change. I'm going to hand it over, and thank you so much for being here, Ben.
Thanks, Cassie. Really appreciate it. So I'm going to talk today about starting a software company with little money and no technical skills. And a brief overview of what I'll be talking about today is, first, I'll just share my experience of starting this company while being an undergrad at Northwestern University. From then, I'm going to talk about how the resources and support from Northwestern helped me turn my idea into a reality. And from there, I'm going to talk about the state of entrepreneurship at Northwestern and some of the things that I've learned along the way. Feel free to send in questions at any point in time, and I'm happy to answer them. I really appreciate the Northwestern Alumni Association for giving me this opportunity, and hopefully it's informative. So, yeah, as Cassie was saying, I graduated from Northwestern roughly 10 days ago. So it's pretty crazy that I officially am joining the alumni ranks. This is me with my family, my parents, my younger sister, and my grandparents. But today what I'll primarily be talking about is my process of starting ZCRUIT, the first company to help college football programs recruit smarter through predictive analytics. The path towards starting that and what that all looked like and happened and how that all happened. So I've been a Northwestern football fan since as long as I can remember. Both of my parents graduated from Northwestern University. My dad graduated in '87, and my mom graduated in '89. They met here in the library, met in core. So growing up, I've always been a huge Northwestern football fan. And this is my sister on the right in this picture. She's actually a rising junior at Michigan. So this picture is pretty crazy foreshadowing. And going into high school, I started finding myself spending all of my free time looking at the Northwestern football blogs, and also just getting really into football recruiting. I was really passionate about finding out where the future stars of Northwestern football, who those guys were going to be, and finding and identifying those guys at a very young and early age. And I spent all of my time checking out, outside of school, checking out what was going on in the world of recruiting, and keeping close tabs on this. It was a way that I could connect with my dad. It was something we always enjoyed talking about, and it was something that I really had a huge passion for and became a big hobby of mine throughout high school. Then towards the summer before my freshman year of college at Northwestern, since we start so late at Northwestern, a lot of my friends had moved on and already started college, and I was sitting around at home bored out of my mind. And I saw a post from one of the primary Northwestern sports sites at the time, like the Post, that was asking to bring in contributing writers that could maybe talk about different areas and help them out in ways. So I responded to a post from Like the Post, and the summer before my freshman year of college, I started writing for Like the Post as a contributing writer, talking about Northwestern football recruiting. And here was actually one of my my articles that came out in September of the summer before my freshman year. And I was primarily the recruiting guy talking about football recruiting for Northwestern. And I tried to use a lot of statistics in a lot of the analysis that I was providing. It was something that I just have always had an interest in, and thought it would be a cool way to be able to explain recruiting in that medium. One of my first couple of posts actually on this site, Like the Post, wound up getting forwarded to the head of recruiting at Northwestern University, a couple of weeks before my freshman year. And about week 1 of my freshman year, I wound up getting an email from the head of recruiting at Northwestern inviting me to come in and talk to him. And from there, went in, I started talking to the head of recruiting at Northwestern, and he offered me an unpaid position working for the Northwestern football recruiting department. From there, he gave me the opportunity, told me that if I wanted to continue the journalistic aspect, that he could be a resource for me, and that I could continue to use him, for interviews or things like that. But if I actually wanted more of a firsthand perspective on what was going on in the football recruiting department and to get experience in the inside, that he would give me the opportunity to work for free and contribute to the program. So that seemed like a no-brainer for me. I immediately started going to work, and I would put in about 12 to 15 hours a week working for the Northwestern football recruiting department. Here's a picture of me working on the sidelines of the Ohio State Northwestern college game day game early on in my freshman year. I would take recruits onto the field prior to games and talk to them, answer their questions. During the season, I would go through and analyze a lot of players for Northwestern and try to help Northwestern make recruiting decisions. One thing that was cool about my work with the Northwestern football recruiting department is that because I came in vetted by the head of recruiting at Northwestern, he gave me tasks that weren't very remedial, but were things that were really cool and led me to be really passionate about them. A lot of the paid professional guys that were working at our department we're looking at the current juniors in high school and evaluating them and making decisions on those players. My job was to get a head start on the current sophomore players in high school and to pour through pretty much every prospect I could find in the country in order to give Northwestern football an initial list of players that we should be checking out, targeting, and identifying in the sophomore class. And at the time, it was the class of 2016. And I loved the job. I spent all of my every waking moment kind of pouring through these players and trying to help Northwestern make decisions. And by the end of my sophomore year, I wound up having a lot of clout in the office. I would meet in the spring of my sophomore year with the head of recruiting at Northwestern every week, in which I give a week-by-week positional breakdown of here are all the quarterbacks that I think are good fits for us that we should be targeting. Here are all the next week, here are all the running backs that are good fits for us that I think we should be targeting, that fit both our skill level, our academic profile, and everything else of that nature. I learned so much about the industry of football recruiting and became really passionate about the whole industry at large. That being said, I found that the football recruiting process was incredibly antiquated and outdated. In the football recruiting department, we would manually pour through in our office upwards of about 5,000 prospects each year, all in order to sign a class of roughly 20 to 25 players. I saw that we'd only get about 15% of the players that we extended scholarship offers to, and even that was on the higher end of Northwestern, of the football recruiting landscape nationally. And that we were just wasting majority of our time and money recruiting players that were just not right for our school. Not only that, but I saw that the time that we were wasting chasing players that were wrong for our school was actually costing us recruiting talent. What would happen is that we would spend the first couple months of our recruiting process targeting players that were overwhelmingly unlikely to come to our school. And months later, by the time we finally got to those next best available guys on our football recruiting board, well, suddenly those players had received scholarship offers from a lot of our rival schools. We were less likely to get those players to commit to our school, and we'd ultimately have to settle for lesser talent. So I became frustrated about the inefficiencies in football recruiting, but I didn't really have a solution quite yet to that. And then midway through my sophomore year, I took Morty Shapiro's class, in which it kind of talked about a smattering of different topics. But one of our lessons was on the college admissions process. And I read a paper that President Shapiro wrote that looked at how admissions decisions were made at a lot of top universities. And I learned that admissions at a lot of these top universities, admissions departments, utilize a regression-based algorithm to accurately predict how likely a general student would be of matriculating to the university. And they use this algorithm for a couple different reasons. One, these schools need to accept more students than they have spots for, because a lot of these kids are going to wind up going elsewhere. But at the same time, they can't have over-enrollment. So in order to remedy that, they run an equation to say, here are the optimal number of students that we should be selecting in order to fill our class size in the way that we want it to be. Additionally, these schools want to improve their yield rates, so they're oftentimes going to reject a lot of highly qualified applicants that have a low likelihood of actually coming to their school. And when I saw that an algorithm was being used to predict admissions decisions for general applicants, I thought, wow, this would be so applicable to the world of college football recruiting. But we know way more about the football recruits that we're recruiting from a football perspective than admissions officers know about the general applicants applying to their school. So that from there, I came up with the idea of coming up with an algorithm or some formula that could accurately predict how likely a football recruit would be to get to a university or to a football school, and using that algorithm to help schools make smarter recruiting decisions, to help them save time and money in the recruiting process, and make smarter recruiting decisions that could lead to better talent on the field. And I had this general idea that I wanted to tackle, that I wanted to solve, but I didn't really have the background to do it. I didn't know data science. I had taken a couple statistics classes at Northwestern, but that was kind of where my statistical knowledge ended. And knowing that this would ultimately, if we were going to turn this into a company, we're going to require some software expertise as well and some software engineers that I didn't have or possess those skills either. So I stood around for a little while and didn't really know what to do. But after a month or two, this idea was still in my head. I still thought it would be a great thing to implement for Northwestern. So I thought, why not? I'll give it a try. So from there, I worked with a guy who had also worked with me in the Northwestern football recruiting department, who'd recently left to go elsewhere. And he was kind of my mentor in the office. And the two of us started entering in all the data we could possibly think of or know on every recruit that Northwestern had offered in the previous 4 years of recruiting. And we entered in hundreds of data points, from qualitative factors to quantitative factors, anything we could possibly think could impact or influence a prospect's decision to commit to Northwestern. We entered that data in, and we had a spreadsheet of hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of tabs of information on these players that took countless hours of just us manually entering into these spreadsheets. And once we had this spreadsheet all set and going, I didn't really know where to go from there. So I took out a $1,000 loan from my parents, and I reached out to a Northwestern MMSS alum from the class of 2010 who said he could build us an algorithm using all these variables that I could then go through, test out in real time as recruits were to make their commitment decisions going forward. So he delivered a weekend or two later something that I thought was going to be a well fleshed out model that we could input players in and spit it out. And it turned out being this file of kind of README docs and code things I would have to enter into my computer code. And I didn't really know what to do, but after being coached through it a little bit, I wound up spending time in the terminal of my computer running these, these Excel docs, and being able to spit out the results that this general model provided based off of the data that we provided in this algorithm. And none of these variables have been tested. It was a very rough estimator of a predictor, but we got this just in time. June of my sophomore year, we got it just in time for a lot of commits to start pouring in for Northwestern. And within 2 months, our algorithm had predicted Northwestern football recruits right 15 out of 17 times. So we started getting this initial success. And over the summer, I actually reached out to a buddy of mine at Northwestern, a guy who was in my fraternity, who was an MMSS student at Northwestern. And I said, hey, I found an alum that was able to do this from MMSS using data science skills. Is this something that you think you could improve upon? I know this algorithm, we haven't tested any of the variables, and we have a ways to go to improve it. Is this something that you think you can do or help me out with? And he got back to me and said, yeah, I think this is something that I could do and would love to do. And we've been working on this ever since. So starting in June in the summer, Danny, who is June of our sophomore, the summer after our sophomore years, Danny and I went back and forth for a couple of months, improving this algorithm for Northwestern and getting it to the point where it was really helpful and really useful and very predictive. We narrowed down the variables that were actually significant for Northwestern football recruiting from a statistical perspective. And on the other side of things, I started having calls with the head of recruiting at Northwestern football, telling him what I was doing. And to the point where he would send me text messages at random points of the day saying, hey, Ben, can you run the numbers on this guy? Or how are we looking with this guy? And we started seeing that not only were we very accurate with our predictive model as we continue to improve it, but we were providing real tangible value to Northwestern football recruiting. And here's an actual example that I can provide to you guys from a member of the class of 2016. It was over the summer where Northwestern had extended scholarship offers to about 4 or 5 wide receivers that we were interested in. And when I ran the numbers, I called up the head of recruiting at Northwestern and I said, hey, Coach Bowers, I just want to let you know that we're not expected to get any of these wide receivers that we've currently extended scholarship offers to. A promising wide receiver just attended our camp and was about to pick up a lot of steam from a lot of other competitors. And the head of recruiting at Northwestern wanted me to run his numbers. And when I ran those, I realized that because we were offering earlier than a lot of the other Power 5 or Big 10 programs, and based off of the other offers and visits and camps and all these other variables that we factored into the equation, that yes, at this point in time, this prospect would be likely to commit to Northwestern. So we wound up offering this wide receiver. Months later, he wound up getting scholarship offers from several rival programs, including his in-state Big 10 rival, but wound up committing to Northwestern throughout the process. Had we waited months on this wide receiver, which we would have probably done in the status quo, we would have been considerably less likely to get this wide receiver to commit to our school. And would have been much more likely to go to one of our rivals, mainly his in-state school that had offered months after Northwestern had. So that was one tangible example in which I saw not only were we predicting things right, but we were actually helping Northwestern get better players than they may otherwise have been getting. So from there, we had this algorithm that was working pretty well for Northwestern and just didn't really know what to do then. We knew that we wanted to build out a software platform for it, but didn't really know where to turn. So we talked to another one of our friends who was a computer science major, but wasn't as skilled or interested in computer science, but thought, hey, I can help them out in a limited degree and turn this into an interface to some degree. And this is what we wound up getting is an interface to Zcroot in which we could enter in player names and enter in a lot of the variables that we had and spit out a coefficient or a percent likelihood of committing for a prospect. And we turned it over to head of Northwestern, but it was was not very robust at all. It didn't have the capability to save anything. It was just a simple input-output formula in which you could enter in a player, enter in variables, and spit out the coefficient. And while it had some value, it didn't get to the degree of a product that we wanted it to get to in terms of being able to bring it to the next level and hopefully be able to get more schools on board and add more value with our overarching service. So from there, we were kind of at a loss and decided to turn to the Northwestern computer science page, where we put out a job blurb looking for a skilled software engineer that could maybe join our team and help us out a little bit. And this is the post we put out, put our official requirements in there, an email. And a week or two later, I'd gotten one email back from a kid named Dino, who was an international student from Bosnia and Herzegovina, but seemed to be incredibly skilled. So we brought him in and had a conversation with him, and it was an awesome match. He wound up wanting to work with us, and we found that he was incredibly skilled to do what we wanted to do. And then we saw that there was a posting for the summer wildfire program through Northwestern University. The Garage, which had recently come about earlier in that year, and the Garage is Northwestern student startup co-working space and incubator, was putting out its first summer accelerator program. And we thought, wow, we would love to be a part of this so we can really have the time space and the ability to go through and Zcroot into a reality. We knew that the program was going to give $10,000 and a 10-week organized structure to help launch student ideas and accelerate student companies. And we thought that we'd be a perfect match for that company. So Dino wound up recruiting one of his best friends from high school who also went to Northwestern. And the two of them enrolled in this winter wildfire summer program and made things happen. So by the end of this winter wildfire summer program, we had developed out a full-fledged software platform that looked something like this, a beta version of our platform that we could actually go through and test a couple schools. Also over that summer, we brought in a customers, and we got 2 additional FBS programs to provide us with data and to test out our predictability and to test out this beta version of our model. And we, had awesome. We were really excited about the platform that we put out. I had high hopes for it. And then in the fall of our junior year, fall of 2015, we started testing it with these users, and we weren't getting active usage. Our algorithms were spitting things out accurately. We had all the ingredients in place. We'd done everything we thought we needed to do, and we just weren't getting active usage on this platform. And we were really freaking out and frustrated. We weren't sure if we'd wasted all of this time. We weren't sure if we were onto something or not. And then we started tweaking and seeing what are some things we could do to incentivize people to actually log into ZCruit, to actually build this into the day-to-day routine of football recruiters, and to actually get that active usage that we'd like out of the product. So one thing that we wound up doing was building in a daily email update and notification system, in which we realized that we could provide news updates and alerts on all of the prospects that would be receiving offers from rival schools. And we could also use our analytics to provide prospect recommendations on a daily basis. Using our algorithm, using some of the web scraping that we were doing, we could provide a whole lot more value on a daily basis and incent people to actually click on ZCruit, log in, and use our product. So we started testing that out and building that out in the fall. And then over winter break in January, we decided to go to the American Football Coaches Association convention down in Nashville, Tennessee. That's the one convention in which pretty much every football recruiter, coach, personnel person, anyone involved in college football is going to be at this convention. And we thought this would just be an awesome opportunity for us to just interact with a lot of programs, to share what we were doing, and to talk more about, just the ZCruit, our idea, and our vision for the world of football recruiting that we envisioned. So in advance, we sent out a whole lot of emails. We relied on some of our connections from my time at Northwestern and other Northwestern alumni as well. And we were able to set up meetings with 8 programs at this convention. We did a very kind of guerrilla campaign. We didn't buy a booth. We didn't even buy entry passes to this convention. We just set up shop at a coffee shop within the convention center. And we just invited people for 45-minute demos to just meet and have conversation with us. We'd buy them coffee, and we'd just talk to them about what we were doing at ZCruit. And we realized that a lot of the coaches and the people that we talked to were really excited about what we were doing. They really liked our product. And while we were just trying to get feedback on it, some even pushed forward and said, "Oh yeah, we'd love to test with you further, and we'd love to move things along potentially," which was really exciting. And we came back feeling very validated about our idea, very validated about our service, and knowing that we'd put a lot of the pieces in place and test a lot of things out. And we're close to being ready for launch. And then 2 weeks after this convention, buzz from the convention actually caught the ears of a USA Today reporter who published a full-length feature article on ZCruit. And from there, things got crazy. We had schools that were reaching out to us. I actually had a top 10 program wound up calling the the associate director at the Garage, asking for Ben Weiss, the CEO of ZCruit, to come talk to him as they were interested in our services. And she looks around and answers the phone and says, "I'm sorry, he's not at his desk right now. Can I take a message?" It was kind of overnight with this press from USA Today. We really blew up and got a lot more exposure. And we really tried to capitalize on that. We sent this article out to pretty much every coach and recruiter in the country, and we wound up setting up several demos of our product. While we didn't think that the product was ready for market quite yet, we realized that, well, we better be close. So we worked with our development team, and we pushed a product out to market and started trying to sell ZCruit to as many people as we could. Within that last couple months after this article, we wound up getting in touch with roughly 25 schools. And in the last several weeks, we've just locked up our first 3 paid customers, which you can see up top as Northwestern, Old Dominion, and Wake Forest. So we're really excited. We've gotten great feedback from these initial first 3 customers. And now we're really trying to solidify a couple more in the coming weeks and months. In terms of next steps, first off, This summer, we've got a team of 6 that's working out of the garage full-time on ZCruit, in which we're working on product improvements and developments, sales, and we're working on the launch of a second product offering, which is just going to be this email service, kind of spun off into a separate product offering that we've heard based off of customer demand, can provide us with a high value, low cost point of entry into selling to universities. And we're really excited about that product offering within the next 2 weeks as well. After the summer, we'll be losing 3 of our team members full-time. They will be going, 2 will be going back to Europe for grad schools. 1 will be starting a job at Bain Consulting. And the other 2 that we've added on recently will be rising Northwestern seniors who will continue to help us out on ZCruit. Myself, I received a job offer from Deloitte Consulting after interning with them this past summer, and they actually gave me a year of deferment on signing that job. So I now have a year of full time in which I can work on ZCruit, mitigate the risk, and see if I can really get ZCruit off the ground beyond where we've gotten it, make more sales, and really try and advance and provide even further innovations to this realm of college football recruiting. So the next thing I really want to talk about, I guess, is really the support that we've received from Northwestern in many areas. And I think we're super fortunate. And I think that there's no way that our startup at ZCruit would be where it was if it wasn't for all the support that we've received from Northwestern and specifically from the garage. So the garage, as a little background, is Northwestern's startup co-working space and incubator. And it came around 2 years ago at the start of our junior year, really when things were ramping up full-time, things were ramping up with ZCruit, and when we started really getting going on it. So it was a really perfect time to be able to be in one of these initial classes of the garage and to really grow up in an actual startup entrepreneurial community. I think first and foremost what the garage and Northwestern's helped us with is they provided us with unbelievable mentorship. Out of the garage, we have so many skilled mentors in terms of the people that work full time at the garage and also the people that they bring in that are here for us really 24/7 to help us answer questions and provide us with guidance and mentorship at every step of the way, connect us to really cool opportunities, and to really be huge supporters for us. It's been awesome to learn from people that have been there and done that and know what they're doing and really can provide us at every aspect and can provide us with advice at every turn of our business. And it's been really awesome to get that mentorship from the garage. Second, the programs at the garage have been unbelievable for us. There's no way that we would have been able to just have the time, space, and the capital to really a beta version of our product off the ground if we didn't have a full summer in which Northwestern was able to support us through organized programming and financially to really get ZCruit off the ground and running. And it was really because of the summer wildfire program that we're able to make this amazing progress. And then in the winter, we took another program through the garage that gave us academic credit. Our entire team of 7 enrolled in it. In the winter wildfire program. And from there, that was when we were able to really accelerate our growth, get our first couple of customers on board, and bring our product to actual market. And it was just because we had the time, space, and the resources from Northwestern to do so through these organized programs that we were really able to accelerate our growth and get from just being an idea into a reality. I think the third thing that's been awesome for us is just the space that the garage provides. We now have this awesome workspace for the summer in which we've got our monitors set up and the ability to just kind of turn around and work with one another. We've got unbelievable meeting rooms. I'm actually doing this webinar from one of the garage meeting rooms right now. And it's been just an awesome space for us to utilize with a lot of excitement and buzz about startups and entrepreneurship. It gets us really excited to be here and to come in and make things happen. And similar to the space, the next thing that I think the garage has been awesome for is the community that it is provided for us. There's now this great community of people that are working on innovative startups and tasks and projects and companies, and just being able to share your updates with other people and hear what other people are doing. It just provides a whole new level of excitement and energy to the whole process, and makes providing a community around the whole startup and entrepreneurship scene has just been really awesome. And I've seen over the course of these 2 years, this community grows so much in Northwestern, and there have been so many cool and exciting things coming out of here and so much buzz that it's been really, really neat. I think the last thing I'd really like to highlight is just the alumni mentorship that we've received throughout the process has been unbelievable. Northwestern alumni have come out of the woodworks for us and have really have been offering to help us along the way. We've had members of the Oakland A's front office that work for the Northwestern, or that are Northwestern alumni, who've reached out, and so many cool people, and that's been one of the coolest parts. But some of the more notable alumni mentors or mentors that have really helped us out the most throughout our process. First off, Mike McRoberts and Brian Baker graduated from Northwestern 15 or 20 years ago, and they started a company called Championship Analytics that provides college football programs with analytical offerings to help them make better in-game decisions. Just help them make in-game decisions. And they've been unbelievable mentors towards us. They're working now with 51 programs with their platform, and have just connected us to so many people, but have also, as people that are working in a similar space, have just been there to provide so much guidance and support for us that has been unbelievable. Another set of alumni that have been awesome for us are the guys behind Rise Science. Jeff Kahn and his team started Rise Science out of Northwestern. They graduated about 3 or 4 years ago, and Rise Science helps college athletes and professional athletes perform better by optimizing sleep and through sleep coaching and sleep science. They're now working with 12 sports programs, and are adding in and are starting to now go beyond the athletic ranks and starting to work with sales teams, CEOs, and things of that nature. And having the Rise team as just Northwestern alumni that are a couple of years our seniors that have kind of been there and done that, started their company while they were undergrads at Northwestern, working with Northwestern athletics, and being in a similar space as us as well. They provide us with just such invaluable mentorship and support. It's been awesome. And even growing up a huge Northwestern football fan, I remember watching Dan Persa score touchdowns for us and the billboards around town showing him as Chicago's Heisman candidate. Even a couple weeks ago, he read an article about us, saw that I was pitching Z-Crew down at an event in the city, and he explicitly came out to see our pitch. We connected after, and I'm actually getting lunch with him this Thursday. And just being able to have someone that I watched play football every Thursday or every Saturday, is now showing interest in us and is offering to help and provide us with support and guidance has just been surreal for us, and has made this experience so great. So just the alumni network at Northwestern and all the mentorship that we received has been so invaluable, and it's been so cool to see just how there are people that can help in every area and are offering to provide guidance, advice, and support in every step of the way for us has just been awesome. The last thing that I really want to talk about is just the state of entrepreneurship at Northwestern and my experience with it, and where I think it's going. First and foremost, I think that all these investments that Northwestern has made in the garage and student entrepreneurship has been amazing, and I'm so grateful for. I think it's provided so many students with amazing growth opportunities and just invaluable experiences. So I really want to thank Northwestern for that. I think it's really changing the climate on our campus and is doing so much good. And I'm really excited about just the investment in the resources and the garage and everything else that Northwestern has been putting in. It's really had a huge impact on both my experience at Northwestern, along with countless other things just in the last 2 years. And I'm excited to see where this continues to go. That being said, I still do think that Northwestern's pre-professional culture is not as conducive to fostering entrepreneurs straight out of college. I think that Northwestern students, one thing I've noticed is that we tend to have amazing graduation opportunities in banking or consulting or other avenues of business, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but which pulls a lot of students away from pursuing startups. And even that is a challenge for myself as what I should be doing a year from now. Should I go the consulting route like my peers, or should I dare to be different? Should I continue to push Z-Recruit and see where it can go as a full-time venture? I know within a year of being able to work on Z-Recruit full-time from now until at least August 2018, I'll have more pieces of the puzzle necessary to be able to make this decision and really know where we stand. But I do think that that's the pre-professional culture at Northwestern of students having these really high value opportunities coming out of college can definitely rub off on students and make students less likely to both start startups while at Northwestern, and also less likely to pursue them even if they do have promise while being students. And that being said, I do see a shift in the culture just over the last 2 years at Northwestern through things like the Garage and these other startup initiatives. There's been a newfound interest and spirit in entrepreneurship at Northwestern, and I think that that's been awesome. The community around it has been great, and I think that you're starting to see so much more buzz and excitement that I think the overarching culture at Northwestern is starting to change. It is starting to shift. And I'm really excited about the resources and continue to support that Northwestern's putting around its students and its startups. Before I end, I guess the last thing I want to talk about is just really what I've learned from starting a company at Northwestern. Z-Recruit has definitely been the most formative experience of my college career, and I've learned more than I could ever have imagined. It has added my educational experience at Northwestern in so many ways, and I'm forever thankful for it. At the end of the day, I was able to turn an idea for a statistical-based software company into a reality without possessing the necessary skills or money to make it happen. And to do so, I learned how to hustle. I learned how to communicate with software engineers to get a piece of software developed from idea to reality. I learned about Scrum methodology and more efficient ways to manage workflow. I learned how to manage and organize a team and the importance of choosing a team of people with complementary skills, differing backgrounds, and who just flat out like spending time with one another. I learned how to have difficult conversations with people over things like equity and underperformance. I learned the importance of empathy and to be understanding of people's time. I learned how to put an idea onto a PowerPoint presentation and turn that into thousands of dollars when I had 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 3 minutes, or even 90 seconds to outpresent some of the top young entrepreneurs in the country. I've made friends with college-age startup founders from across the US, whose companies range from saving baby piglets from getting squished to death in the pen to those that provide all-natural tampons and pads in a monthly subscription box. I've learned the importance of good mentorship, and I've learned just how hard selling is. I've learned how to be politely persistent. I've been told yes a few times and learned how to create contracts, send invoices, and collect payments. I've learned about bookkeeping and accounting and taxes. I've learned about customer service and how to delight. I've learned about pricing, financials, and the importance of the numbers that go into business. But I've learned to value the people even more. I've had several times in which I thought this idea was set to die, and I've had many times of euphoria in which I thought we made it. We still have a ways to go with Z-Recruit, but this journey has been awesome, and I'm excited to see what else we'll do in the weeks, months, and years ahead. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to talk, and with that, I'll open it up to some Q&A.
Great. Ben, that was awesome. Thank you so much for all of that great information and taking us through your story. I think that, it was great to hear your context of starting a company while being a student. And I think we have some questions that are about the company Z-Recruit itself, and then also about your experience. So if we can get right into those. Our first question that came through early on in your presentation was, were there any notable players that joined Northwestern that you identified specifically, whether through the help of Z-Recruit or before that?
Yeah, as a student intern, there were several players that I was the first person to stumble upon and identify that wound up committing to Northwestern football, which was super cool. Several players in both the 2016 and the 2017 recruiting classes. One of note, this is not necessarily a player who's panned out per se, but just a player that is on our roster and wound up committing. Early on in my freshman year, I saw that there's a player from my high school actually who started picking up a couple offers. He went to Oak Park River Forest High School just like me, and I saw that he picked up offers from Western Michigan, a couple other MAC schools. So I checked out his film, and brought him to the head of recruiting at Northwestern. He said, "Oh, I've never heard of that guy, but he must not have grades for us. And I pulled up his profile, said, well, coach, he's got an offer from Harvard, so I think he's got grades for us. So that ended up spurring us to offer Adam Lemke-Bell, and wound up getting a commitment out of him. So that was, one notable example, but there have been several players that I think probably about 7 or 8 that I can just kind of name off of that in the 2016, 2017 classes that I think I was the first to identify. Not necessarily going to give myself credit for all of those players because there are a lot of other checks and balances that go through it. But in terms of early identifying guys, putting those on my list and passing those forward, I think there are definitely several players that I was able to identify that Northwestern's wound up recruiting and wound up getting commitments out of.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And we have a few questions about the Z-score. Someone wrote in asking what the superscript number by the Z-score column was. Can you take us through what that is and tell us more about it?
Yeah, so what we found is that the Z-score is what we like to call the percent likelihood of committing, indicates how likely a prospect is at this current time. But while we were going through the process, we saw that things such as visits or camp attendance can also significantly impact a prospect's likelihood of committing. So if a player's never visited your school, you don't want to show that he's, just inherently unlikely to come to your school. So the superscript, the other number, what that shows is kind of the max possible likelihood of committing. So what we show is the current likelihood of committing, or a current Z-score, and then what we like to call a Z-max, or a max possible likelihood of a prospect committing to your school.
Interesting. And so then
it's like additional visits or attends your camp, or visits overnight. How likely would that prospect ultimately be of committing to a program like Northwestern?
And that's awesome. So does your school, or do you guys make recommendations based on the max Z-score that someone could have? Do you say, hey, if this person got to your campus, it would be bumped up?
Yeah. So one thing that's done is that it's really shown the importance of the impact of different types of visits. So we can show you what the impact of like a prospect visiting for a game versus a general day versus doing an overnight visit is, and being able to kind of weigh those different visits accordingly, and have coaches then try and get recruits on for these certain visits, or try to max out their likelihood of committing, or make better decisions around trying to push players onto their campus. Outside of that, if a prospect's Z-score tends to get maxed out, well, suddenly that changes how schools tend to approach prospects when they're recruiting them. They know, well, if this is the last time this player visits our campus for his Z-score likelihood of committing to actually go up or to change, then we should really try and bring him home, or lock that down, or get this commitment as soon as we can if he's falling into our range. So it kind of changes or impacts how these coaches wind up recruiting these prospects as well, along with making recommendations on which prospects they should be allocating their time towards.
Interesting. That's really interesting. And we had a question about how do you expect your algorithm will need to change for, as more competitive schools are using Z-Crew?
Yeah. So every algorithm we build is custom tailored to each school we work with. So we use custom variables for every school that differ from school to school, and we run different numbers. What we have seen is that in pitching to, we don't think our target market is those top 5 or top 10 programs in special recruiting, where they can kind of, in effect, get nearly everyone they want. But the programs between numbers 10 and 130 are really prime targets for Z-Crew. We found that different things for different schools are going to matter. So for a school like Northwestern, maybe things like geographic location aren't going to matter because we do recruit so nationally. But for some more geographically inclined schools, that the geography of the prospect really matters. If you get prospects on campus for different visits, if they have connections, all these different things are going to matter at different lengths for different programs. And some of the more competitive programs, we may have some different variables that we need to factor in that may not account for. So another thing we're trying to do to be able to provide value to some of these more high level or competitive programs is we're currently in the process of trying to develop an algorithm that can accurately predict if a prospect is going to have success on the field, if the prospect's actually going to pan out for your school. So we're in big experimentation phase this summer working on that. And we've had initial promising results, and that's one that we've had a lot of these top-level programs that we've been in contact with who've reached out and really expressed interest in that, in terms of can we actually predict if a player is going to perform? And that's kind of the million-dollar question in recruiting that we're trying to tackle, trying to solve, and we'll see if we can have success doing that as well in order to expand and build onto our current product offering.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Another question we had was, are there other challenges in college football recruiting that you're trying to meet? And it sounds like this is the next step for ZCruit. Are there any other things that down the road you'd love to be able to provide through ZCruit?
Yeah, so we currently have an identification tool. We're in the process of strengthening that, making that a really strong tool in which we can show schools at the start of their recruiting hunt, the best players in the country that are somewhat likely to commit to their school that would actually fit their program and their program's criteria. So we're in this set to implement that in the next couple of weeks, and we're really excited about that. Another problem that we're looking into solving is kind of travel budget and optimizing travel. We see that one of the biggest expenses in recruiting is the flying across the country to visit different prospects. Yet that's not necessarily done in as efficient of a budgeted way. And that's another thing that we're looking into with ZCruit in order to hopefully provide more value with our product offering and solve just even more problems in recruiting. And then I guess the last one is really the news aggregation of updates. Was another problem that we've been able to solve, is that news, you either have to get lucky that you stumble upon it on Twitter, or you have to really spend hours scouring that yourself. Whereas we just kind of provide all of the news and information on both prospects that you're currently training, along with prospects that we think you should be interested in. We're compiling all that data and presenting it to schools in a very easy to read way. And as a result of that, we're set to send out a second product offering within the next 2 weeks. That's going to be called Zmail, that is just going to be on this kind of email alerts and updates side of things that we're really excited about as well.
Very cool. And I'm curious, with the sales portion of ZCruit, do you sell the algorithm that you specifically make for these schools, each specific school, or is it like an ongoing service?
We're selling the software platform. So we have a full-fledged software platform. Each algorithm is custom made and works on the back end for each account. And we just set schools up with individual accounts that they renew every year with us. So that's kind of the sales and business model, is each year these schools spend $10,000 renewing their ZCruit subscription and getting access to the services that we provide.
Very cool. And have you considered branching out into other sports, or is this or is football your niche?
So football is definitely our niche right now, but we have considered it, and it's in the long-term plan. In terms of building a regression-based algorithm, football just works so much better than all the other sports, just because in football, schools are recruiting they're extending scholarship offers to about 200 players and getting about 20 to commit. And on the other wall, in basketball, these programs are going to extend scholarship offers to maybe 10 prospects to get 3 to commit. So it's a very different, you just don't have the numbers to back it up as much. Also with football, there's just so much more publicly accessible data that's out there that we can pull from and draw from. That's really great and updated very frequently. And football and basketball are really the only two outright revenue producing sports. So it's hard to sell directly to other sports. That being said, our ultimate goal is to provide an overarching recruiting analytics and management tool that can be sold to athletic departments on a whole, and can house all of the recruiting data and provide analytical solutions across football, baseball, basketball, and the whole suite of sports for athletic departments. So that's the overarching goal. I think we're a ways away from being there and doing that. But that's where we hopefully do intend to expand this into other sports.
Very cool. And we had another question that came in asking about who owns the underlying data used to make the algorithm for a school. What confidentiality agreements did you have to go through for this data?
Yeah, so we just signed standard NDAs in order to get access to the data with the schools. So we promise that we bindingly sign an agreement that says that we cannot and will not disclose any of their data or information to any other schools, competitors, rivals, or the public. And then on the other side, we make sure that these schools don't give away any of our kind of secret sauce or our recipe in the NDA. So we have a two-sided NDA that goes there. And once we sign that, we're good to go with the school and we get access to their data. Oftentimes it is some of their confidential or private data, and we work with it through that.
Really interesting. And I guess, so our last question about ZCruit, and you spoke a little bit about this, your long-term vision for ZCruit down the road. Can you walk us through what you're picturing? You said you're going to take this next year off to basically run this startup. What next?
Yeah, it's I don't have it as fleshed out, and I'm not entirely sure if what things are going to look like a year from now. Hopefully, we're able to have a lot more success, make a lot more sales, and get a lot more revenue. In that case, it'll be a thing where I continue to try and grow it and develop it, and have that as my full-time job. As the financials break down right now, if we don't get a whole lot more customers or clients on board in the coming months, then I may have to go part-time on it or figure out other ways of going about it. The one thing we know is that we're providing real tangible value to the customers we're currently serving, and we're really excited about that. So we are definitely not gonna kill it in any way, shape, or form. But in terms of figuring out what it's gonna look like in the future, we're still trying to figure all that out. We're right now just investing all the money we're getting back into the company, and trying to grow it and build it organically that way. And hopefully the financials and the numbers will work out a year from now, in which it's a smart financial decision for this to become my full-time job and to keep working on it and keep going on it. So I think we'll definitely have a clear picture about things in the coming months about where we stand with ZCruit, and I'm optimistic that it'll become the full-time job going forward, and that we can continue to make an even more meaningful impact in the collegiate athletic space.
Yeah, definitely. That's really cool. An exciting time for you, definitely. We had another question that came in as you were talking. How many schools are you projecting to be on board for the next fiscal year or the next calendar year, whatever you track by? It's
hard. It's really hard to project. I think we'd like to be at somewhere between 5 and 10 in the coming months. Mm-hmm. That being said, we really are optimistic about the second product offering, Email, which we can sell that for $3,000 across universities as just email updates and alerts. Is just a quick and easy revenue stream that we can really use as a kind of a marketing tool and get people on board of. So I'm optimistic about that product offering, but we're set to launch it in 2 weeks, so it's really hard to say if that'll really catch on to the amount that I expect it will. So mm-hmm. I'm hopeful that we'll get between 5 and 10 ZCruit customers and between 10 and 20 Email customers within the next year. But we'll see what ends up happening.
Yeah, definitely. Well, great. I'd love to touch on the mentorship piece, because I know you talked about the garage and the mentorship that you've received through the garage. And I was wondering if you may be able to break that down a little bit, what that looks like. Is that relationships with specific people, or is it the culture of the community at the garage, or both? Yeah,
so I think it's to start specific people. The executive director of the garage, Melissa Kaufman, she's unbelievable. She's a former Googler who started a company of her own and sold it. Now it's the garage here, and we're so fortunate to have her. And she's just been an awesome mentor to have working here. And also the associate director of the garage, Billy Banks, Northwestern alum. He's been really amazing as a mentor and a guide as well. Who's started a lot of successful companies and had a lot of success of his own, and is been really, really great mentor for us. And then also the garage brings in mentors from really across the Chicagoland area to come help us out and talk to us. They'll have accounting office hours or legal office hours, so they'll bring in industry or people that are have expertise in those fields to come out, talk to us, and provide us with support and guidance there. They'll connect us to people that have domain expertise for what we're looking for. And they set every team up with a specific mentor who can provide them with guidance and support. So our mentor, worked for the NBA and runs some startups around his own and has kind of that sports and software and startup background. And he's been really great to have around. So I just think we've gotten so many mentors and resources from the garage that have just been really, really great. So I think that it's come from both the staff and the resources that they've been able to bring in for us.
Yeah, that's great. And I think we have time for maybe 2 more questions. I know the garage talks about promoting and accepting failure. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about that environment where it's okay to fail, and do you feel that way with starting your company and having the support through the garage?
Yeah, every week the garage tries to honor a failure at their weekly family dinner or multiple, and have people stand up and discuss the things that went wrong. I know for us, we've definitely been frequent people to stand up and discuss some of our failures. We lost a customer that had been locked up, or the IRS taxes came in and we owed more money to the IRS. So we had money in the bank account, little things like that just pop up that are unexpected, that you learn how to handle these situations later on, which are good. I think that it's great that the garage embraces failure. I think the one thing that I'd push back on sometimes with that is what it means to fail. I think that there are a lot of times in which student startups fail without necessarily giving it the full go, and they will mark quitting as failure and try to celebrate that. And that's one where I'm more skeptical of, but I don't think that happens as frequently. But it's a difficult thing to toe the line between celebrating failures in the sense that these are learning opportunities for people to continue to learn from, and celebrating failures as a way to excuse people for trying and maybe not giving it their all, but said that they did a startup and failed at it. And having that be a celebrated thing, I think it's a two-edged sword.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a really good perspective on it. And we appreciate you sharing. And I think we have time for maybe one more question. And this is totally out of curiosity. As someone starting up a company as a student, how is your day-to-day schedule going to be different from running this company as a student to now running it full-time?
Yeah, so this is week 2 of us working full-time out of the garage, and we're definitely working hard. We've got a 10 to 6 hour calendar day, but it's been so much less stressful on my end, and I think the rest of our teams, in terms of just like the time and the stress. It's from having a full slate of classes and homework and all that, and then plugging in and working on the things you have to work on with Zcruit. The ability for us to now be more proactive with some of the work that we're doing, now that we have the time, space, and the opportunity to just go full time this summer, for us to be more pre-planned on a lot of the things we're doing and not being as reactionary has been huge. And just also for the first time, we've now got a team of 6 people that are all in swivel chairs, a couple feet away from each other, that we can just roll over, tap each other for questions, and collaborate so much easier when we had to rely on FaceTime or Slack and texting and all these mechanisms to try and push things forward. And when you're dealing in a crisis situation and you can't get a hold of someone via FaceTime or Slack, those can be really, really stressful. Where I feel like things that I would have thought of as crisis situations as a student suddenly aren't crisis situations, because we now have the people all together and can just tap each other and problem solve it in person. And it's been really, really great. So I think that we're definitely not slacking, but we're not as stressed as we were when we were doing this as students, with everything else we would have on our plates. And it's been really fun to be able to work in a set space, and it feels very cool and professional. We're it's only week 2 of it, but we've been very excited about what this has looked like for us.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's great to hear. it's good to be less stressed and to be able to be a little more creative. So that's great. And Ben, thank you for sharing all of this information today. It's been great to spend this last hour with you. Do you have anything else you'd like to share before we end for the day?
That's about it. I really appreciate having the opportunity, and thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you again, Ben, for all this information. And thank you to everyone for joining us for today's presentation. To find all of the archived and upcoming webinars, please check out the full webinar website through the NAA at alumni.northwestern.edu/career webinars. Have a great rest of your day and go Cats.